In the shadowed corners of a quiet Austin neighborhood, an unexpected scene was about to unfold. The crime shocked everyone who heard about it, seizing the city with fear and curiosity, unraveling with every chilling detail. This is Crime Detectives, where we dive deep into America's most unforgettable true crime cases. Today, we're taking a journey south to Austin, Texas, where in May of 2022, the brutal murder of a rising star athlete sent tremors through the community and set off a cross-border chase for justice, a tale painted in jealousy, betrayal, and a deadly love triangle. It all began on May 11th, 2022, when Caitlin Cash walked into her apartment after a long day, expecting nothing more than a quiet evening. But the second she entered, she sensed something was wrong. Her friend, 25-year-old Anna Mariah Wilson, known affectionately as Mo, lay sprawled on the bathroom floor, blood pooling around her head. Caitlin's hands shook as she dialed 911. I need help. My friend, I don't know what happened. She's on the bathroom floor. There's blood everywhere. Desperately following instructions from the dispatcher, Caitlin counted aloud as she attempted chest compressions. But as Caitlin struggled, the reality began to set in. Her friend was gone. When the paramedics arrived, the life of Mo Wilson, a rising cycling star, had been snuffed out in a brutal act of violence. When police officers arrived on the scene, they found the situation as grim as Caitlin had described. Mo lay lifeless, 3 bullet wounds marking the end of a promising life. Her hands bore signs of a desperate defense attempt. One of the bullets had passed through her hand before embedding in her head. Another shot to the head and one to the chest, which pierced her heart and left a mark on the floor, told investigators a story of cold calculation. This was no random act, this was personal. Quickly, law enforcement worked to preserve the scene, meticulously inspecting the area for clues. They found empty shell casings near her body and noted that nothing seemed out of place or stolen. The apartment was intact, save for the horror in the bathroom. This looked like an execution, one detective remarked to a colleague. They turned to Caitlin for answers, asking who might have had a reason to hurt Mo. Caitlin revealed that Mo was visiting from San Francisco to participate in a local bike race. And as investigators probed further, one name stood out, Colin Strickland. Caitlin hesitated but told them Mo had spent time with him earlier that day. As investigators pieced together the puzzle, they discovered an even more chilling detail. Mo's bike, a high-end racing model, was missing, but it wasn't long before they found it discarded in nearby woods. A strange move by someone who clearly wanted to hide, but not take it far. And then came the breakthrough. Nearby security cameras had captured footage of a black SUV circling the neighborhood around the time of the murder. Police found footage from a Ring doorbell that captured the unmistakable sound of a struggle and 3 loud pops, gunshots. On the screen, the time of death was marked in digital numbers, with the final moments of Mo's life playing out in real time. As the mystery unraveled, the clues painted a picture. Colin Strickland, Mo's friend and training partner, had reportedly been seeing someone else, a woman named Caitlin Armstrong. It soon became clear to detectives that Armstrong may have viewed Mo as a threat to her relationship with Strickland. Investigators followed this lead, and it wasn't long before they began to suspect that jealousy had driven Armstrong to commit the murder. With mounting evidence, the police issued a warrant for Caitlin Armstrong's arrest. But Armstrong had disappeared, setting off a high-stakes manhunt that would span across borders. As the investigation continues, the world waits, wondering if justice will prevail for Anna Mariah Wilson, the young woman who lived fiercely and died tragically. And as we dig deeper, remember, in this story, nothing is as simple as it seems. In Austin, Texas, detectives found themselves at a loss after the tragic murder of cyclist Anna Mariah Wilson, known to many as Mo. With few local ties, it seemed Mo had no known enemies in the city. But that was until her friend, Caitlin Cash, mentioned a name to investigators, Colin Strickland, a fellow cyclist Mo had been getting close to in recent months. "Did she and Colin have an argument?" the officer asked. I don't know. All I know is they went swimming together." Caitlin confirmed that Mo had met up with Colin the day she was killed. As it turned out, Colin Strickland was a decorated cyclist in his own right, well known within the racing community. To detectives, the relationship between Strickland and Moe suggested that the suspect might not be far from the victim's inner circle. The next morning, police located Strickland and brought him in for questioning. "Do you know Moe Wilson?" "Yes, of course. Everyone calls her Moe. She's a GR rider," he replied, referencing her growing reputation in the world of gravel racing. Strickland seemed genuinely shaken when he learned that Moe had been killed, his face going pale as he processed the news. He described her as a talented cyclist with a promising future, someone he greatly admired. He admitted they had spent the evening together, grabbing dinner after a swim. Video surveillance confirmed his story. The two were seen dining calmly, showing no signs of conflict. "I dropped her off at her friend's apartment after dinner," he explained. He estimated it was only a minute or two after she entered the apartment that she was attacked. While reviewing Strickland's alibi, detectives noticed several vehicles parked outside his home. Among them was a Jeep Cherokee, which looked suspiciously similar to a dark-colored SUV captured on security footage circling Moe's neighborhood on the night of the murder. When officers asked about the SUV, Strickland clarified that it wasn't his. It belonged to his roommate and on-again, off-again girlfriend, Caitlin Armstrong. At this, detectives couldn't ignore a new, chilling possibility. The Jeep matched the suspect vehicle caught on CCTV near the crime scene. Strickland's relationship with Armstrong, coupled with his connection to Moe, seemed to hint at a possible motive. Eager to learn more, investigators invited Strickland to continue their conversation at the police station. During the interview, they asked about Armstrong, probing gently to see if she might have harbored any resentment toward Moe. "Has Caitlin ever been aggressive or made threats?" "No, she's always seemed gentle to me," Strickland replied, visibly torn. "I just don't see it. I care about her, but I'd never think she was capable of this." Over time, detectives learned more about the complexities in the couple's 3-year relationship. Strickland admitted that he had a brief romantic relationship with Moe during a break from Armstrong. Though it had been short-lived, he admitted they were still friendly. In an unexpected twist, Strickland also revealed he had recently purchased 2 firearms, one for himself and one for Armstrong. Both had practiced together at a local shooting range, details that left detectives wondering if jealousy could have driven Armstrong to commit the crime. As detectives continued their investigation, a chilling new lead emerged, and Armstrong herself would soon face questions in the most pivotal interview of all. Austin police were closing in on a key detail in the murder of 25-year-old cyclist Moe Wilson. Surveillance footage from that tragic night showed an SUV circling the neighborhood near Moe's home. A breakthrough came when detectives traced the vehicle to 34-year-old Caitlin Armstrong, who shared a complex, on-and-off relationship with Colin Strickland, a fellow cyclist who had recently grown closer to Moe. With a minor active warrant against Armstrong, police had the reason they needed to bring her in. When officers located her, they proceeded with caution. "Do you know why you're here?" the officer asked. "I have no idea," she replied, visibly tense. "There's an active warrant. It's a theft of service charge, something minor. The alleged theft of service was for an unpaid Botox treatment, a small offense that provided police with an opportunity to talk with Armstrong. This minor charge allowed them to place her temporarily under arrest, giving them time to ask some probing questions. Once in custody, however, detectives soon realized that an error in the warrant, a wrong date of birth, made it invalid, meaning Armstrong was free to leave at any time. They explained the mix-up, then took a new approach. With Armstrong technically free, they'd simply ask if she'd consent to stay and answer a few questions. "I'd really like to get your side of things," one detective began, shifting the focus toward the recent tragedy. "Colin mentioned your name in connection with what happened to Moe." Armstrong's reaction was telling. She seemed increasingly uneasy, at one moment asking if she might need a lawyer. Though she hadn't invoked her right to counsel, her hesitation was clear. She kept asking if she was free to go, her discomfort rising with each mention of Colin and Moe. "Can you tell me what Colin said?" she asked cautiously. "Well, he mentioned you might have had some issues with Moe. That maybe. Things got tense?" Armstrong denied it flatly, but her body language shifted. A once relaxed posture grew tense, eyes darting to the door, seemingly ready to leave. "What were you doing the night Mo was killed?" the detective pressed gently. Her face tightened, and she repeated her request to leave. The detectives made it clear that leaving was her choice, though they warned it would leave them with only one side of the story. Armstrong lingered, as though weighing her options. She wanted to know what detectives had on her, but also seemed desperate to escape the room and the questions. As her guard continued to rise, detectives wondered if they had just glimpsed the unease of someone hiding something crucial. The case was far from closed, and the uneasy suspect's reaction only deepened their resolve to uncover the truth. Detectives in Austin, Texas, were piecing together a dark mystery: the murder of 25-year-old rising star cyclist Anna Maria Mo Wilson. Surveillance footage from the night of her death captured an SUV circling her neighborhood. Investigators traced the vehicle to 34-year-old Caitlin Armstrong, a yoga instructor with a complicated on-and-off relationship with cyclist Colin Strickland, who had recently become close to Mo. But Armstrong denied any involvement, growing increasingly defensive each time detectives hinted at jealousy or her vehicle's presence in Mo's neighborhood. Armstrong initially seemed confused when the detectives questioned her, her focus shifting from clarifying Strickland's interactions with Mo to wanting to leave the room. Detectives, meanwhile, sensed the resistance as a red flag. They had no grounds to hold her on suspicion of murder, but they had their prime suspect in mind. From that moment, they set their sights on Armstrong, monitoring her every move. In the days that followed, authorities noted her quick moves to liquidate assets. Armstrong sold her 2012 Jeep Cherokee, pocketing cash, a common step for someone preparing to flee. Their suspicions were confirmed when Armstrong abruptly left the Austin area. Security footage caught her at Austin Bergstrom Airport, clutching a yoga mat, boarding a flight bound for New York City, where her sister lived. But after her arrival, Armstrong vanished. Desperate for leads, detectives reached out to Armstrong's sister, only to find that her passport was missing. A check on international flight logs under the sister's name revealed Armstrong had fled to Costa Rica. U.S. authorities then issued an international alert, and the hunt was on. Weeks passed, and Armstrong remained elusive. Federal agents enlisted the U.S. Marshals Service and took an unusual step, posting a fake job ad for a yoga instructor at a hostel in Costa Rica. A hostel staff member who had befriended Armstrong began to suspect the guest might be the fugitive, tipping off authorities. Armstrong responded to the ad, unknowingly walking into a trap. She was finally detained in Costa Rica on June 29th, after 43 days on the run. When arrested, Armstrong had drastically altered her appearance. Her hair dyed and cut short, a nose bandage concealing recent cosmetic surgery, and a backstory about a surfing injury. But her real purpose in Costa Rica was not lost on the authorities who'd been tracking her. She was deported back to the United States, facing a murder charge for the death of Mo Wilson. In the following months, detectives examined digital evidence and discovered Armstrong's calculated behavior. Using her business connection to Strickland, she had read his messages and emails, tracking his interactions with Mo. Her suspicions had spiraled, and she began harassing Mo with taunting messages and calls. Detectives believed she had decided to confront Wilson with fatal intent. As Armstrong awaited trial, she made one final attempt to escape. During transport to a medical appointment, she attempted to flee but was quickly apprehended. What could have been a comedic twist underscored the deadly seriousness of the case. A woman on the run from justice after allegedly ending the life of a promising young cyclist. In November 2023, after over a year of twists, turns, and a relentless chase, Caitlin Armstrong finally faced trial for the murder of Anna Maria Wilson, with all eyes fixed on justice for Mo. The last sound Mo Wilson made on this earth was a scream, a cry of terror that echoed through the quiet Austin neighborhood, followed by the abrupt bang of gunshots. After a brief pause, another gunshot rang out, a final act that prosecutors argued could only mean one thing. Caitlin Armstrong was intent on ending Mo's life. The evidence seemed chillingly clear, they said. Armstrong had circled Wilson's neighborhood in her Jeep, long before Wilson even returned home. She had the gun, the motive, and now her actions pointed to intent. As investigators combed through the scene, they found 3 shell casings. Ballistics tests revealed the casings matched Armstrong's gun, suggesting it was the very weapon used to kill Moe. GPS data from Armstrong's vehicle placed her in the vicinity of Wilson's home on the night of the murder, giving the prosecution a clear path to argue that this was no spontaneous act, but premeditated. The defense countered, however, pointing out that no one had witnessed Armstrong entering Moe's house that night. There was no direct video evidence of Armstrong at the scene, and they raised doubt as to whether Armstrong had been the one driving the black Jeep. Could it have been someone else, they asked. Someone who had access to the vehicle, like Colin Strickland, Armstrong's boyfriend, who also had motives entangled with jealousy and control. Strickland, after all, had recently purchased the very gun allegedly used in the crime, though it later came into Armstrong's possession. Still, Armstrong's decision to run weighed heavily against her. Prosecutors argued that her fleeing the country was a clear sign of guilt. She'd left Austin days after the murder, even altering her appearance and eventually hiding out in Costa Rica. But the defense suggested a different story, saying Armstrong was afraid for her own life, potentially suspecting Strickland or another person involved with Moe had dangerous motives. But prosecutors emphasized Armstrong's escape was the behavior of someone with something to hide. After presenting their circumstantial case, the prosecution saved their most damning piece of evidence for last: Armstrong's DNA, found on Moe Wilson's bicycle. This small but crucial detail, prosecutors claimed, was as clear as a fingerprint, a mark linking Armstrong to Moe's last moments. Over days of testimony, 40 witnesses took the stand, painting the picture of Moe Wilson, a young, talented cyclist who had her life stolen in an act of senseless violence. After all the evidence was laid bare, the jury took just 2 hours to reach a verdict. In the quiet tension of the courtroom, Caitlin Armstrong was found guilty of murder, convicted of taking Moe Wilson's life in cold blood. On July 21, 2022, Armstrong was formally charged with murder, to which she pleaded not guilty. Held on a $3.5 million bond in Travis County Jail, her case encountered delays before going to trial on October 30, 2023. Armstrong unsuccessfully sought to exclude evidence from her police interrogation, arguing it was illegally obtained without a Miranda warning. Meanwhile, a federal charge of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution was temporarily dismissed, a standard move given her constitutional right to a speedy trial. Then, on October 12, 2023, Armstrong briefly escaped custody during a medical visit but was quickly recaptured. She faced an additional charge for the escape but saw it dropped shortly afterward. Finally, on November 16, 2023, Armstrong was found guilty of first-degree murder and received a 90-year prison sentence, with the possibility of parole after 30 years. An appeal she filed was ultimately denied, and she is now serving her sentence at the Dr. Lane Murray unit. The next day, the court reconvened to deliver Armstrong's sentence. The judge handed down a 90-year sentence, coupled with a $10,000 fine, marking the end of a trial that had rocked the Austin community. The Wilson family shared the profound pain Armstrong's actions had caused, describing how losing Moe had shattered their lives. They spoke of the radiant young woman Moe had been, a presence now only in memory, forever taken from them by an act they would never truly understand. But the story didn't end there. In a final attempt to hold Armstrong accountable, the Wilson family pursued and won a $15 million judgment against her in a wrongful death lawsuit, seeking some sense of closure amid their grief. In the quiet of the courtroom, as the world remembered Moe Wilson, a gifted cyclist whose promising life was cut short, her family's words echoed as a reminder: Moe's spirit endures, untouchable now by any darkness. And though her earthly race was unfairly cut short, her memory would live on, shining brightly.